so confident they'll make the playoffs that if they don't, I'll wear a Giants or a Dodgers jersey on one of our podcasts.
You don't need the pressure of always trying to perform here at the major league level, so that might be a good thing.
You talked about the athleticism of this Padres team last time out, and he just embodies it. Happy Friday, friends. It's another live edition of the BCSC podcast, Best Coast Sports Connection, on a Friday afternoon here in sunny San Diego while I'm cooped up inside my little podcast studio here. Joined today by Thomas Conroy. Thomas, hello, and how are you?
Howdy.
Good to see you there. And
today,
I'm excellent. Also want to welcome in Andy Bishop, as always. The three amigos here on the BCSC podcast. Andy, what's cracking?
Not a whole lot. Busy week. Slowly coming out of my Padres dungeon of despair. Getting ready for a fun offseason. So I'm feeling better than I was about a week ago, plus.
Well, so the last time we got together and we're talking, we were leading into the Dodgers series, and we all had our predictions about what was going to happen in that Padre-Dodger series. Needless to say, none of us were correct, as the Dodgers swept the best-of-5 series, 3-0. The first game wasn't great. The second game was awesome, came right down to the wire, could have gone either way. And then the third game was a blowout in the Dodgers' favor. So, we've had close to a week to digest that now, and the Dodgers are on to the NLCS, where they're currently trailing the Atlanta Braves 3-1. But guys, going back to the NLDS, Padres-Dodgers, Game 2 lived up to the hype, absolutely. What are your overall impressions? Thomas, we'll start with you just on how that series played out and kind of where the Padres are left standing.
It's a tough series for me, quite frankly, because I just thought for the second straight series, the Padres had no plan B for their starting pitching. After in the divisional series, it was once they found out that Mike Clevenger and Dinelson Lamet weren't going to start. They didn't have a plan B set for them. And then when Clevenger kind of could only go that one inning, it seemed the sales just went out, and they really just didn't have a plan on how to move forward. I mean, the post game comments by Jace Tingler were really shocking to me. I mean, you really have to have a plan. I think I don't think you could go in the playoffs and kind of go play it by ear, game by game, on who's going to start. To me, it's just not a winning proposition.
Well, some of that was dictated by the fact that the top two arms for this season, Dinelson Lamet, who pitched really well all year, and then Mike Clevenger, who the Padres picked up at the trade deadline, were unavailable for the first round of the playoffs, and then basically unavailable for the NLDS as well. Clevenger started Game 1 and pitched all of one inning, and that's about all we got out of him for the entire postseason. So not having your top two pitchers for a postseason run, especially with all the games back to back to back, that's a pretty tricky one. Andy, is that kind of all you read into what that series was for the Padres, was not having our starting pitching that we needed in place, and the bullpen just being basically overused?
Yeah, I mean, that was a punch to the gut with Clevenger in Game 1. I mean, we thought we had a chance with him coming back, and the bullpen just got dealt a pretty crappy hand this entire postseason. And, they were steady for us at the back end of this season, and, you just can't do that to a group of guys. I mean, obviously you can blame it on the injuries. I guess I just took away a little bit as well of how we just couldn't deal with that Dodgers offense. We knew they were one of the best in baseball, but you guys, they hit so many balls so hard. Like in that first game, there could have been a couple shots to the warning track that could have gone out of another ballpark. There were liners and grounders that were hit so hard. Cronenworth and Machado and Tatis just like diving all over the place. Um, and I saw our offense not quite doing that. So I don't know. Maybe we need to add another piece, or maybe just some more depth to this lineup as well.
Well, one interesting thing in that first game, a lot of the balls that were hit right to the warning track by the Dodger players, those were some of the hardest hit balls that the Dodgers hit. But in the innings where they scored their runs, the first run that they scored was after the Cronenworth error when he threw the ball away to first base, pulled Hosmer off the bag, ended up a run coming across on that. And then in the next inning, they just had a bunch of dinks and dunks and little flares that, backing up base hits that got them the 5 runs in the 6th inning against the Pods after the Pods had that 1-0 lead heading into the 5th. But if Cronenworth makes that play in the 5th inning on the Bellinger grounder, honestly, I think that entire game is different. I don't think the next inning happens the way it did. After Clevenger went out, the bullpen had put up 4 straight 0 frames, and they were looking at going through the 5th inning without giving up any runs. They hadn't given up a hit at that point. They had given up a lot of hard hit balls, but it was just a moment where, hey, we have this 1-0 lead. We're clinging to it, and all the wind got let out of the sails when the 3rd out of the inning turned into a run for the Dodgers in a tie game. So that moment right there in game 1 was kind of a pivotal one to me and really set the tone for how the rest of the series played out. Do you remember back to watching that, you guys? Like, what that was just such a deflating moment. I don't know. It was only one play in a long series, but that one sticks out to me as love to have that one back. And just what if Cronenworth had made that play and what happens next?
Mine's a little bit different, Brian. It's really the catch by Bellinger in game 2 of a Tatis's shot to center field because to me, I really would want to know if the Padres won that game, who would have been game 3 starter? Would Tingler have gone to Chris Paddock in that instant with the series at 1? I think they would have at least tried him for one more start in that game, and I really firmly believe that, and to me it would have been a different series. I'm not telling you the Padres would have won it, but I think it would have been it definitely would have played out a little bit different, because that game 3 was just garbage as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so game 2, the play you're referring to, Thomas, I believe it was the 7th inning, right? And Fernando Tatis Jr. comes up. Gratterall was pitching for the Dodgers. He had just come in, and there's a runner on base. The Pods are down by 1. So I believe the score was 4-3 at the time. And Tatis hits a ball about 411 feet. The fence is only 408, but Cody Bellinger pulled it back. Off the bat, it looked kind of like there's a chance it's going to be a home run, but it wasn't a no-doubter because Tatis, he kind of put his head down to start running, thinking it was going to be extra bases. And Bellinger took such a weird approach to the ball. Like, his route to the fence and to actually catching that ball were really strange. But he lets that one go, and the Padres have a lead. Again, everything changes at that point. But instead, he makes the catch. The Dodgers tack on 2 more runs in the bottom of the 7th inning. And then the Pods mount that 9th inning comeback. They end up getting the bases loaded with 2 outs in the 9th inning after Moreland and Grisham with a couple of big hits. And then Tatis and Machado drawing walks on really good at bats where they both face 2 strikes. And then Hosmer coming up and a position with the bases loaded down by a run in the bottom of the 9th. Couldn't get that final run or the tying run or go-ahead run across. And then, game 3, just a major a major disappointment. But after the way games 1 and game 2 played out, game 3 was kind of a foregone conclusion at that point. Andy, is there any moment besides the couple that Thomas and I just talked about that sticks out to you as a what if? Man, that would be fun to see it play out differently.
Not really. I mean, the Bellinger catch is it for sure. I felt like that was like the epitome of our fight against the Dodgers this entire season is we could go toe to toe with them. In that game, our offense was
Yeah.
coming alive, but they just made one more play than we did. So, that shows that we're right there with them, but I think some of their playoff experience showed and just the collective unit that they are. And with an understaffed, amount of arms on our team, it just wasn't going to work this year. Tough to say. There's so much woulda, coulda, shoulda with this team this year. It just didn't come together. Sadly.
There was also another moment that was born out of the Bellinger home run robbing of Tatis, and that was the Gratterall blowing of the kiss to Manny Machado, and Machado telling him to, do a little four-letter wording off. And then the rest of the Dodgers getting into it too, and that just added a whole new layer to this what is becoming a rivalry. And we said last week the Padres need to compete here for this to actually be a rivalry, because right now it's just so one-sided. Now, we didn't compete in terms of getting wins, but there were instances that happened that made it seem like, okay, this could potentially become a thing. And these are moments that we're going to remember next year. And if people are allowed in the crowd and the Dodgers come to town and Gratterall comes on the mound, he is going to get booed so hard. Like, everyone's going to remember it. Those are the kind of moments that stick out. The Dodger fans are going to boo Grisham so hard when he gets to Dodger Stadium. And that's the kind of stuff that you think about and remember, and the way that a rivalry is created.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Brian. Gratterall, that, of course, annoyed me so bad when a guy just smashed one off you and you got lucky because your outfielder bailed you out. It's one thing if you tip your cap to, the guy that saved you, but then when you just throw it in the other team's face. I feel like this is just like the older brother, younger brother dynamic with these two teams. Like, we are knocking at the door. We're bringing the energy, a little bit of the pizzazz that may come off as annoying or immature to some people, but I think it adds a lot of excitement to the game. We're knocking on the door, baby.
Thomas?
It's, hey, man, this is how baseball is, man. People show their emotions on the field, and Gratterall, obviously, we never saw a pitcher throw his glove and his hat at the same time in happiness. So that was a little bit shocking, but the bat flips. I mean, it's all the same. The one thing that I've kind of enjoyed this year was I didn't realize how much chatter there is out of the dugouts towards each other that we can hear because of no fans. It's pretty interesting. I didn't know that happens a lot at the major league level, but there's definitely some chattering. And yeah, I agree with Andy. I mean, add fuel to the fire, man. I really can't wait until next year when the Dodgers come to town and boo their ass off. I hate them.
Well, the Dodgers, I mean, now they're in the NLCS and they find themselves in a precarious position, but a position that they know very well. And that is facing a 3-1 deficit in the NLCS against the Braves. They just got taken apart last night, 10-2. The only game they've won in the series, they scored 11 runs in the first inning. The craziest thing about that 11-run first inning was they had 2 outs and they'd only scored 1 run. So they scored 10 runs with 2 outs in the first inning of that game. But since then, they have been completely, and before that, completely dominated by the Braves. They just seem outmatched. Everyone's going to blame it on the fact that they've had some starting pitching woes. But as Padre fans, we're not going to listen to that at all because they have no idea what we've gone through. And also, the Braves lost 2 of their top 3 pitchers at the beginning of the year. So they're playing with rookie starting pitching as well. So no excuses for the Dodgers, but it is something that could change the dynamics in Los Angeles after this year, having gone now 8 straight division titles and not winning a World Series. Let's assume they don't get by the Braves. Is something going to change in Dodger land? Thomas, do you think they make a change up top, Do you think they get rid of Dave Roberts? Like, what do the Dodgers need to do from their side to get things right and at least, appease their fan base that they're doing something to change, because they've shown over 8 straight years that this team is not getting it done in October.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, but I think they're going to have to really look at their bullpen because, I've been saying it on our podcast. I think every time we've talked about the Padres and Dodgers is I don't trust their bullpen. And that held true even in game 2, Brian. If you remember, they took out Kensley Jansen there and brought Joe Kelly in to close that game out. And to me, it's a serious issue with Jansen where if I was a Dodger fan, I don't feel comfortable having him there at the end of the game. And for all intents and purposes, he's your closer that all of a sudden lost his job. So I think they have to look at the bullpen, and then also from the lineup perspective, I think they need a third hitter in that lineup. You have Betts, you have Bellinger, 2 excellent ball players, but they don't have that third player. I mean, it's a lot of players that I would think that are good platoon players, but the rest of them, I really don't see them as great everyday players. Their lineup doesn't scare me. I know Joe Buck and John Smoltz. I mean, they annoyed me. Well, I should say Joel Davis and John Smoltz annoyed me in that series because they already had the Padres checking out of their hotel in game 1, and we hadn't even played the other two games yet. And then in this series, Joe Buck and John Smoltz are just like ringing the tune for the Dodgers, and I'm all like, they got so excited with that 9-run explode, with that 9th inning explosion to make a blowout, a close game. And then like you mentioned in that 11th run first inning, you know how crazy that first inning was? I'm just starting to run again. I went out for a run, a 20-minute run. And when I came back to my apartment, it was still the first inning.
Yeah, that first inning played out in almost an hour of real time, which is just crazy. Thomas, I feel like you're probably alone on the island of the Dodgers lineup. Has a lot of holes and is not very good. At least that's what everybody says, that this lineup is, the best thing since sliced bread. But I think
how can it be when Max Muncy bats 198? Come on.
Hey, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Give me a break. If it's such a great hitting lineup, then how come they're not winning the series?
I think the Atlanta Braves would like to have some words with anyone who says that the Dodgers have the best lineup in the National League, because the Braves have a lot of quality bats. They have 2 MVP candidates in their lineup, 2 guys who are probably going to steal votes from each other, in Ozuna and Freddie Freeman, and they've been scoring a ton of runs all year long and just kind of flew under the radar as everybody talked about the Dodgers throughout. So I don't think it should be a huge shock that the Braves are doing what they're doing to the Dodgers. I think the big shock is how they're doing it without 2 of their top starting pitchers who they lost at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
Andy, what do you think about this
Mike
Dodger
Soroka
lineup? I know, that was a bummer. And wasn't it Soroka's Achilles, Thomas, or
yeah,
like not even a throwing injury? It was a foot. Oh gosh, that's brutal.
I think he was fielding a bunt and he popped his Achilles.
AB, what are your thoughts on the Dodgers lineup?
I still respect it a little bit. I mean, at least at the top of the order this year with Betts and Seager. I mean, Seager had a phenomenal year, but I think he's a free agent upcoming, so that's got to be a concern for them if they can keep him around or not. Sure, they have, a couple hitters that haven't hit for average this year, but they still scare me a little. Got to be honest.
Well, we've got speaking of free agents, this Padre team is all coming back. The only free agents that we have right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe from the actual field, Jurickson Profar is a free agent. I wouldn't be surprised if he re-signed with the Pods. Trevor Rosenthal in the bullpen is a free agent. He came over on a short-term rental. and Garrett Richards becomes a free agent. So everybody else is either under contract or arbitration eligible. So we pretty much have the entire team coming back. Do you guys anticipate a lot of moves in the offseason for the Padres? Do you see any of those guys re-signing with the club? I mean, I could probably make a case for at least Rosenthal and Profar that I think it's likely that they would come back. They both seem to enjoy their time here. Um, you guys see it any differently? Do you think Garrett Richards has pitched his last innings as a Padre, or any of those guys? What's your most likely scenario on whether those guys come back or go elsewhere? Thomas, we'll start with you.
I think the biggest concern for the Padres is finding the closer, and I agree with you. I would love to see Trevor Rosenthal come back in that closer position, but again, like you mentioned, I think there's going to be a lot of teams after him because of the way he pitched. He had 4 saves in the 9 appearances with the Padres after that trade deadline deal with the Kansas City Royals. So I think he'll be a hot commodity. And as far as Profar, I think really what AJ Preller has to kind of look at here, do you want to get a bidding war for a guy that really, I hate to say it, but he only played 60 games. We only seen him in 60 games. I think the one thing that general managers and front office are going to have to kind of really evaluate is, this wasn't a full season. It was only 60 games. That's 2 months in a normal baseball season. And, I think Profar is going to get a lot of offers because, as we talked about, and especially you, Brian, you've echoed about his versatility playing the infield and the outfield and kind of coming more mature at the plate. And I think teams in the major leagues are going that route. They want that type of player. But do the Padres really want to kind of sandwich themselves in with maybe a big money contract that they don't necessarily want to need, especially with the way the minor league system is developing talent?
Thoughts, Andy? I also, as I'm thinking here, Kirby Yates, right? He's a free agent this year. I just not having him playing this year, just kind of forgot and thought of Rosenthal as the closer. But Kirby Yates, one of those guys as well. Andy, your thoughts on any of those guys coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention Yates. Who knows? He may not have much value on the open market, coming off the injury and aging into his mid-30s. Maybe we can bring him back and he's another strong arm in the pen. I don't know if you want to rely on him as your closer, so that's why I'd love to bring Rosenthal back. The only other one I think you didn't mention, Brian, was Jason Castro, our backup catcher at this point, which I don't think that needs to be a huge priority. Obviously, we have Nola there. But going back to Profar, I would love to keep him because I think he adds depth and he adds that versatility. Again, not that I want to fall in love with the Dodgers, but it is their depth that I really saw this postseason. They have guys like Jock Peterson, Kike Hernandez that can fulfill a variety of holes that can come off the bench and give you good defense and give you a good at bat. So I think Profar would be a good addition to keep him around this offseason.
Yeah, interesting thing about the Padres versus the Dodgers in that way. Chris Taylor is a guy who he'll start some games at shortstop, he'll start some games in left field, he'll start in center field at times. But the Padres, that you're going to have basically the infield is pretty much set. Cronenworth was named the Sporting News Rookie of the Year. He'll probably get a few more Rookie of the Year nods on some of the other groups that are putting out the award. But I think Cronenworth has established himself as the second baseman. Tatis and Machado is probably the best left side of the infield in the league. And then Eric Hosmer is the first baseman. Mitch Moreland would be the DH or first baseman if Hosmer's getting a day. And then Pham probably in left field, even though Profar played really nicely there. Grisham in center. And then I got to imagine we keep Will Myers around. So our team is a little less move people around than the Dodgers are. So do we necessarily need that guy? It would be great to have a player like a Jurickson Profar who can play every position, but he's also kind of a positionless player at that point. He didn't start the first 2 games of the first playoff series. A couple other times he didn't start games as well. So I don't know. I would love to have him here, but we don't move our lineup around nearly as much as the Dodgers do. So maybe we wouldn't be able to afford to have someone here who's not going to play every day at the type of money that he would probably demand. Interesting though, man. It's exciting to think about an off season and have a little bit more clarity on where things have landed and kind of what's going on for the new year. What do you guys think about the rotation and all the young guys potentially coming up to fight for rotation spots? We've still got the injuries to Clevenger and Lamet, which we haven't talked about yet, but I just never trust that they're okay. I don't know. There's a lot of things to unpack. I don't know how much of that we want to get into right now, but any initial thoughts on the 2021 rotation for the Pods? Andy, why don't we start with you this time? Let's move it around.
Yeah, so definite concern with Lamet and Clevenger. No surgery needed. Will rest do the trick? We'll see. Uncertainty with Paddock. Zach Davies, in my opinion, more of a number 4, number 5 guy. I think we need to add another strong arm. How realistic that is, I don't know. But Preller has shown this year he's not afraid to, make some type of move to bring in another player to improve a certain position or the rotation or whatnot. So, especially with Paddock, man, we've talked about his struggles this year, and like Thomas was saying, it was just a 60-game season. So, maybe he takes a long off season and comes back really strong next year. But I think today there's a good amount of uncertainty with this rotation.
Thomas, what do you think about the rotation? Do you see any of the young guys being able to sneak in and be one of the starters on opening day next year?
Yeah, that's really the question that I have is how much work did like a youngster like Mackenzie Gore? I know he was over at the alternate training site at University of San Diego, but what does that all entail? Like, what do you do over there? Do you have like inter squad games? Or are you just doing simulated pitching over there? I mean, to me, I think this whole season, unfortunately, due to the cancellation of minor league baseball, was a lost year for the youngster, and I just don't know if the Padres can honestly give him a fair shot at maybe becoming the 5th starter of this rotation next spring training, simply because he didn't get any work in this year in actual game competition. And what's really a wild card, guys, and I would love to get your thoughts on it, is I don't know if you've been watching on Twitter, is Trevor Bauer sort of doing his open invitation to like 10 or 12 teams on how he would look in that team, and almost sending his resume out through Twitter to several teams. It started with the Boston Red Sox and him buying a plane ticket to Boston and saying, hey, I might be showing up soon in that town. But he did one for San Diego. What are your guys' thoughts on Trevor Bauer?
I mean, I think Trevor Bauer's a stud, a really good pitcher. I think it's hilarious what he's doing, marketing himself right now. He's doing it with pretty much every team, as you said, Thomas. But it's an intriguing guy. I just wonder what the money would look like. And I know he had said at one point that he wanted to sign 1-year deals so he could keep proving himself and, getting a maximum he can each year because he believes in himself. And that's the kind of confidence that you like to see. But I just wonder, if the dollars work out all right. But yeah, he's buddies with Clevenger, obviously. So, and who wouldn't want to come to San Diego, especially now that the team is nasty and everybody knows that it's going to be a really good squad for a long time. I feel like this could be a destination. I don't know that he would take a discount to come here, but that's an intriguing piece. If you threw him up at the top of the order, and then if Clevenger and Lamet, which are big question marks, did come back at full health, man, you've got a really solid top of your rotation, and then you've got the Davieses and Paddocks and Patinos and Gore and potentially Ryan Weathers, although he looked really good out of the bullpen in his one, so albeit brief, outing in the postseason. Yeah, I mean, when you add someone like a Bauer, it just pushes everybody else back a spot, and Bauer's probably going to win the Cy Young here in the National League this year. So it just makes you that much deeper. And then that means that Dinelson Lamet is pitching against the number 3 pitcher of every team we face pretty much throughout the whole course of the season. So you go into Pittsburgh and Milwaukee and Miami, and you got Dinelson Lamet pitching against the number 3 for these other squads. And I like your chances to go out and win 100 games. So that would be exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I mean, he brings the swag that I think would fit this team, just, creating its own unique identity. But yeah, it is dollar signs. We've got the big contracts of Hosmer and Machado. We're talking about a possible long-term extension for Fernando Tatis Jr. So you got to factor in a lot of those things. It would be a good fit. I mean, I think it'd be more realistic if it was a shorter contract. But I don't know. Is he, looking for that 7-year, $200 million contract or whatever? We'll see.
Yeah, it is very exciting. The other thing that's exciting to do is hate watch. And I didn't know how fun that could be, but both championship series is right now have great opportunities for hate watching. Obviously, we don't like the Dodgers because we are Padre fans, and that is our sworn nemesis. And then on the other side, the Houston Astros have advanced to the ALCS once again. And after all the cheating scandal and everything, it's really hard not to root for the Rays on that side. So the NLCS and hate watching the ALCS, and it actually makes it kind of fun. So far, both teams that I have been pulling for, the Braves and the Rays, have nice leads in their championship series. But is that intriguing for you guys at all? Have you been hate watching any of these series? And am I right to think that we should be rooting for the Rays and the Braves in these AL and NLCSs?
I'll let Andy go first.
Sorry, I'm 100% with you, Brian. The Astros, the hateable team across all of baseball, and then the Dodgers, our biggest rival. But for me, it's also just good to see teams like the Braves and the Rays succeed. I mean, the Rays pitching staff is so dang good, and got to feel a little love for them with some of our former players there. That catch that Manuel Margot made over there in right field over the fence. I was so happy to see him do that. So yes, very easy to hate watch the Astros and Dodgers. Thomas?
Yeah, I love it. I take it one step further because I watch the Dodgers lose, and I quickly turn on their post-game show on LA Sportsnet via my direct TV, and I just love hearing the announcers grovel on how frustrating it is to lose. And and they don't, they work for the Dodgers, so they kind of step around the issues of why they lost, and you get no information except this crying in their hands over this colossal, another defeat in the NLCS. So I love taking it to that step further, and just watching them grovel up there in LA.
Well, as we check in right now on Game 6 of the ALCS, the Houston Astros have taken a 3-1 lead in the top of the 5th inning. They're still threatening. They've got a runner in scoring position and only one out. the Astros looking to become just the second franchise to come back from 3-0 in a best-of-7 series and advance to the World Series. The first, obviously, being the 2004 Red Sox that went on to win the World Series. And so it could be interesting if that series goes to 7, just to see, the attempt at a comeback. But I'd love to see the Rays advance to the World Series. The Rays, one of the few franchises that has never won a World Series, to go along with the Padres and the Mariners, Rockies, a couple others as well. But the Rays are one that's been really good for a long time in a really good division in the AL East. And I would love to see them break through and finally win that title, with the 29th ranked payroll in all of baseball this year. So that is, they seem to be doing something right, and they're just super easy to root for. And then obviously the Braves as well. So I've been watching that a little bit. Anything else you guys been watching? The NBA finals were decided. The bubble was a rousing success in Orlando, and the Lakers won the championships. So I was a happy camper. Although I was a little soured on LA sports because of the Padres Dodgers series. So it felt weird rooting for an LA team after just being so upset by them before. But it was still cool to see the Lakers and winning their 17th title to equal the Celtics number. Both of those franchises leading in NBA titles. So whoever wins the next one, maybe next year it'll be Lakers Celtics in the finals, and someone will bump forward to 18. But that was exciting. You guys been watching anything else besides the baseball playoffs? Thomas, how about you?
I watched I'm really enjoying the Tuesday night / Monday afternoon NFL games that we've had in the past couple of weeks, and we're gonna have another one. I think that's gonna be, a little bit better than the than your typical first game with the Bills and the Chiefs. And I'm getting back into the NFL after obviously the baseball season. And I was mildly surprised how the Raiders handled the Chiefs on Sunday. I don't know how you guys felt, but I thought that was the first time I saw Patrick Mahomes kind of not have an answer for a defense, as he looked thoroughly kind of confused by what the Raiders were throwing at him. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, his numbers, I didn't realize until during that broadcast how he's not ever thrown an interception in a September game, which is like that's hard to fathom, because it's the beginning of the season, and that's when you're prone to make mistakes, especially on a football field, because you're not in tune with your teammates and whatnot. But he starts off amazing. And and what about our Chargers there, Brian? They did their usual. I saw that routine for a long time, blowing. I mean, the only team that can blow a 17-point lead late in the fourth quarter. So that I had a potpourri of getting myself back in the NFL, and I was thoroughly happy with the games that I saw over the weekend.
Yeah, having the Dodgers lose and the Chargers lose about 5 minutes apart on Monday night was pretty exciting for the hate watching crowd here in San Diego. That was a good result. Andy, you been paying much attention?
Yeah, mostly just NFL at this point. I was going to mention the Chargers, typical Chargers. It looks like Justin Herbert, though, might be the real deal. He's looked pretty impressive in the early going. So the remaining 8,000 Charger fans have something to cheer for. I don't know. Maybe it's less than 8,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might be overshooting it there. I don't know.
800. Going back to that Chiefs Raiders game. I mean, it's a matter of who can go up against the Chiefs in the AFC, and the Raiders showed that they got something. And then Tennessee was pretty impressive with their victory over Buffalo. So just with their punishing style of play, that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, that was it was. Oh, sorry, go for it, Thomas.
No, I was just gonna say I felt really bad for Dak Prescott. I mean, that was just a gruesome injury.
Oh, yeah.
And you just especially after hearing his story during the off season, especially all of the unfortunate turmoil in his own personal life, and just to go through that. I hope he does come through it, and we'll see him back on a football field. That's my only hope. So much love out there
Yeah,
to
and
Dak Prescott.
speaking of back on the football field, would love to see Dak back out there, and I think he'll come back and be really solid, and hopefully with the Cowboys, because he feels like the Cowboys quarterback. And um, the other guy, Alex Smith, he
Oh
came
yes.
in and played in the game for the Washington football team, and I happened to be watching at the time, and it was like pins and needles watching him play. After watching the documentary and seeing all that went on with his leg and all that stuff, it was really hard to watch him back in a game, and I was just so worried. Like, the guy almost lost his leg. I feel like he still could. I thought he was crazy that he was coming back to begin with. I never thought he would actually see action, and then to be going up against the Rams front seven and just get. I think he got sacked 6 times, maybe. Like, he got hit a bunch, and Aaron Donald staring you down from the other side. Like, that was as bad a situation as you could come into, but Alex Smith survived, and I was really proud of the San Diegan Alex Smith going out there. And when he said he thought he might play football again, I thought he was crazy, but he proved us all wrong, and that guy's made us something that, man, if he could bottle and sell that, he'd be wealthier than he already is. But that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I'll echo you on that, Brian. I mean, a guy that we love here in San Diego, and a guy that I feel has always been an underappreciated quarterback. Has been pretty successful everywhere he's been. Kind of ushered in Kaepernick in San Francisco, and then Mahomes in Kansas City, and then just to battle back from that, just an incredible guy. I love seeing that.
Yep, very true, very cool. Pretty cool story. Hopefully, he continues to stay healthy, and he can be a source of inspiration for the guys like Dak and other people who have injuries, and not even just in football, but military injuries all across the board. That guy has come back from something crazy, and he's an inspiration for a lot of people for a lot of years to come. I'm sure of that. Well, guys, we've been getting after it here on a Friday afternoon. It might just be time to say goodbye, but I really appreciate the conversation. That was a lot of fun. Any final thoughts before we head into the weekend here? Anything sports related, life, pop culture, presidential stuff, whatever you guys want to talk about. Any final thoughts, Thomas?
Yeah, I've been getting into. I'm going to be morbid, but after the death of Eddie Van Halen, I've been getting into re-listening to the catalog of Van Halen, and I guess I was naive. I didn't realize how guitar driven every song of Van Halen was. You can clearly hear the guitar at the. It's almost, instead of a lead singer, it was the you identify a song by the guitar riff, and gonna miss that guy. That was one of the bands I never got to see, and I wish I had. And so I've been getting back into my music, and I've been listening to the catalog of Van Halen.
Love that, Thomas.
AB? Yeah, that's really cool, Thomas.
Throw it back to a little bit of a sore spot. That game one against the Dodgers, we had Mike Clevenger going, and I was being as San Diegan as I could be, and I was going to throw down a taco per strikeout, and Clevenger only had one. But I still ended up eating 6 tacos. So just living the
nice.
San Diego lifestyle, getting out to the beach, trying to keep sane here. So, yeah.
Yeah, my
What about you, Brian?
I guess my thing is it's been watching Petco hosting the American League baseball playoffs, and just all the shots of San Diego, and like, it just makes me so proud. I don't know. I have like the most civic pride in San Diego of pretty much anyone that you could imagine. And it just gets me so fired up for when it's the Padres hosting those games and there's 50,000 people inside Petco going crazy. It's just going to be so exciting. And I I don't know what that is going to feel like, but I'm excited for us to all be there and get an opportunity to experience that. And it just can't come soon enough. So I guess we'll have to wait at least another year before that happens. But in the meantime, it's cool to see Petco on television and looking so good on another beautiful week here in San Diego.
Agreed.
All right, fellas. Well, thanks again. Really good stuff today. Really enjoyed it. Can't wait to do this again. Hopefully next week we'll be able to get back live and get some comments, get some engagement with the crowd, and see what we can do with this thing. But for Andy Bishop and Thomas Conroy, I'm Brian Vilvin saying so long. And we hope you join us next time on the BCSC podcast.
Thanks, Brian.